Hi, this is Mike from thesubstream.com. This is another episode in the film lab of... Last week we talked about ND gels, which are like the basic gels. They're like the starter gels, and you use them when you want to change the intensity of a beam of light without changing the color of the light or without changing the shape of the beam of light. Today we're going to talk about another basic type of gel, which is diffusion. Diffusion doesn't change the color of light, generally speaking, although there are some colored diffusion gels, and they only reduce the amount of light or the intensity of it as a side effect of what they're intended to change, which is the shape of the beam of light that's passing through it. Now, given that it's called diffusion, I'm going to give you two guesses. Send me an email what diffusion does to that shape of beam of light. So thank you for your emails, and yes, Jaspar Smarlipchunch, diffusion does make the light. There's a couple different types of diffusion made by companies like Roscoe and Lee. There's enough that the back, I'd say, eighth of their swatch book, this is Lee Filter's swatch book, is dedicated to different types of diffusion because they make stuff that does different things. They make stuff that's fireproof or flame retardant, or they make stuff that's tough enough that you can actually sew it to a giant big frame thing. And they make stuff that somehow magically doesn't make any noise when wind blows on it, so you can put it on a giant screen above some actors outside and not have it go all day long when wind blows across it. But basic stuff, unsurprisingly, is called just diffusion, and it comes in different fractions. There's 16th white diffusion, which we don't have because it's expensive and it doesn't actually do very much. There's 8th white diffusion, which we don't have, although we probably should. And then there's quarter white diffusion. Are you seeing a pattern here? And does this to our friend Optimus. There's, unsurprisingly, half white diffusion, basically double the other. And does this to our friend. And then full white diffusion, which is Lee Filter's number 216. It's called 216 on set a lot, so you'll know that. That's full white diffusion. This is what it does to Optimus. Oh yeah. So the closer you get to full white diffusion, the more the diffusion diffuses the light. And what it's actually doing is making it less ordered and less focused and less coherent. So what happens at the edge of the beam is that the shadows that it casts on an object when you're lighting it with diffusion become less apparent. It's like the difference between bright sunshine and an overcast day where the light is diffused by the clouds and scattered and bounced around in a bunch of different directions. So there's much less shadows under full diffusion or under an overcast sky than there is under a bare bulb or a flaming gas giant in space, which is the sun. So let's look at what different types of diffusion do to our friend Optimus and the shadows that the diffusion creates or doesn't create. So this is Lee Filter's 251, which is quarter white diffusion. This is quarter compared to full white diffusion. That's full. Where did the shadow go? So what diffusion actually does is it disorders the beams of light. It makes them less coherent and less focused and less organized, so the shadows are lessened. And this is really handy because it turns out that when you shine a bare bulb on unattractive people like myself that have lines in their face and blemishes, those little shadows that are created make the person look even uglier. But when you put diffusion up, the light is softer, the shadows are less intense, and I go from looking like really a swamp monster to looking more of just a regular, average ugly dude. Less hideous, more plain. Less of a swamp beast, more of an unfortunate genetic accident. Which is very handy So when you're lighting people or things, make sure you've always got at least some half white diffusion in your kit. Remember, it's like ND. If you want to double the amount of diffusion, you can just fold the sheet up, and then it's like you had full diffusion. Check back later when we talk about other cool gels.